Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. We enter a new unit in Bukhari, that is Kitabul Iman, the unit on Iman. Remember, this is so important when it comes to reading the compilations of Hadith by especially the early scholars of Hadith, like Bukhari, Muslim, etc. When they say Kitabul Iman, right, something like the unit on Iman, they have a goal, right? They want you to learn about Iman, not simply quote Hadith that has the word Iman in it, right? That's not what's going on. Today, when people read, or when most people read Hadith, they don't understand the connection. No, Bukhari is teaching you about Iman without him ever speaking, right? That's what makes his book so important, so phenomenal. He's not saying anything from his own words, but he is teaching you through a concept like Iman and the Hadith coming afterwards. And you'll have several chapters under each unit, right? And again, when you read it, you think that it's just kind of the same idea. Iman is important. Bukhari isn't that, surface when it comes to what he's trying to teach you. He wants you to truly understand Iman. And so one of the ways we need to understand is, well, first of all, what is the relationship between the title of the chapter and the unit? Also, what is the relationship between the hadith and the title of the chapter? Right? That's number one. And I'll try and do that with you as we go. Number two, Bukhari isn't interested in repeating the same point. Right? He's not interested. The Quran doesn't do that. Bukhari doesn't do that either. So we assume that each chapter is meant to teach us about Iman something different than the other chapters. Right? Something different than the other chapters. And again, we'll try and do this as we go. So Kitabul Iman, the unit on Iman. What is Iman? Right? Iman means a tasdeeq. It means to believe. Right? And it's important to appreciate this word. Two connotations of this word, Iman, to believe. Right? Number one, Iman is only applicable in areas where there's room for doubt. Okay? Even in the English language, the word belief is used in a similar way. Nobody says, I believe the sky is blue. You don't believe the sky is blue because it's blue. You see it, right? It's something that is factual. There is no room for dispute. Now, people might differ in terms of why it's blue, right? I believe the sky is blue because it's a reflection of the water, maybe. Or I believe the sky is blue because of certain chemicals or elements in the ozone layer with the reflection of the sunlight, it becomes blue, whatever. Here we can say, I believe it's blue for this reason. But we cannot use the word believe to simply identify the color of the sky because it is tangible, right? When it comes to the issues of Iman, there needs to be room for doubt. I believe that this man named Muhammad ﷺ is a prophet. Why is there room for belief here and doubt? Because the realities of what makes him a prophet is unseen to us. Jibreel going to him from Allah, we don't see this. Right? Even the companions themselves, they may have seen a man who the prophet claimed was Jibreel, but in the end, the one they see is a man. Right? Just like somebody could come in and say, hey, you see this guy next to me? They're actually an angel. Anybody can make that claim, but we wouldn't believe them because it doesn't seem like that, right? So there's room for doubt. There's an afterlife. You can believe it, you cannot believe it. It's something that our senses cannot perceive, right? And so this is where Iman comes in. This is where you have to believe. And this is where it really matters. Because if person A and person B both believe the sky is blue, then are they really different? I mean, what makes them different? Nothing. But when it comes to the belief in the afterlife, there's an infinite amount of levels here. Some people completely reject it, while other people wholesomely accept it and embrace it. Some people believe in an afterlife, but I don't really know what goes on. We can never be sure. While other people believe that there's an afterlife and they believe in some of the details. And those who believe there's an afterlife, the extent of which that belief influences their decisions and their actions is a whole lot of levels. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts Surah Al-Baqarah by praising the believers for what? The first thing, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the unseen, because that's where it really matters, right? And this is one of the wisdoms as to why Allah is not seen, right? To see the level of loyalty and submission, because it's when it's to someone who's not seen, then that makes a whole lot of difference, right? And this is precisely what Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu ta'ala an told the Roman general who showed interest in becoming a Muslim, right? He said, if I become a Muslim, what will my status be amongst Muslims? Right? You all saw the Prophet, you believed, you did this and that, you're kind of the pioneers of this. You know, I'm a general, I have a certain status. So what will my status be if I become a believer? Will I just be y'all's servants? Because there are some religions out there that believe converts are servants of the natives, so to speak. Yeah, you're lesser than us. You're inferior to us because we were born into this faith and you were not. What was Khalid ibn Walid's response? He said, you will be better than us. You will be better than us. And the Roman general was shocked. What do you mean better? What did Khalid say? He said, we saw the miracles of the Prophet, so we believed. You didn't see the miracles of the Prophet, yet you believed. You're better. Now, of course, no one can surpass the companions. But the Prophet ﷺ does teach us in a hadith that the iman of future Muslims will be 50 times more than the iman, or I should say the reward of future Muslims will be 50 times more than the reward of companions. Now, why, Ya Rasulullah? Because you saw me and believed in me. They didn't see me and they believed in me. So there is an aspect where we get more reward than the companions, right? And that is in what? The fact that we believe in the Prophet yet never saw him. But it's only in this realm. We're not better than them overall. We can never. And the Prophet ﷺ tells us this, right? So iman is a tasdeeq. Where it means something is in the realms where there's room for doubt. And a decision has to be made. Effort needs to be made. And this is the second point about iman, a tasdeeq, to believe in something. That you only truly believe in something when you negate the doubt. When you negate the doubt. Right? Because there's all kinds of doubts. What about this? What about that? How come this? What if this? What if that? What if it's another religion? What if it's that religion? What if, right? So when a person becomes firm in belief is when they have removed the doubts. That's when they enter into belief. And perhaps this is one of the reasons, one of the wisdoms as to why the shahada is in the negative form. La ilaha illallah. There's none worthy worship except Allah. It's like we have looked through all of the other options and we've realized that no one besides Allah is worthy of worship. The shahada could have been A'budullaha wahda. I worship Allah alone. You see? So you have this element as well, and perhaps for that reason the word iman comes from the word amin, which means safety. When does a person feel safe? When the elements of fear and insecurity are negated. You see how the word is used? So it comes from amin. And of course, the reward, or one of the reward for tawheed, for belief, is al-amin, feeling of safety. Right? And behaving with people in a way where you express to them, hey, you're safe from me. You're safe from me. As the Prophet ﷺ says, al-mu'min man amina an-nas من شره أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. A believer is the one who other people are safe from their evil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Those who believe and they do not mix their belief with shirk, they are the ones who will find safety. They'll be safe and secure. All right? So that is a breakdown of the word iman. The first chapter is قول النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام بني الإسلام على خمس. The Prophet's statement that Islam is built on 5. These are the 5 pillars of Islam. We know that there are 6 pillars of Iman and 5 pillars of Islam. Okay, wouldn't it have made sense if Bukhari began by telling us that the pillars of Iman are this? Yet he comes and says the pillars of Islam are these things. Right? Now, we assume Bukhari has a logical reason behind why he's saying it this way. Perhaps, again, we can always contemplate. Right? This is me interpreting his words. I could be partially right, I could be partially wrong, I could be fully right, I could be fully wrong, right? So, just to kind of make that point. But perhaps the reason why Bukhari is starting off and talking about the pillars of Islam instead of Iman is to tell us that Islam, the actions of faith, are a category of Iman. Okay? That actions are related to Iman. They're not separate. And why he's bringing this up is because in his time, this was a question being asked. What is the relationship between actions and Iman? Do my actions affect my Iman? And does my Iman play a role in my actions? This was a question being asked, and there was a group called the Murji'ah, right? It's a group that claimed that there is no relationship between actions and Iman. So long as you simply believe in something, then there are no layers to that. It's like a black and white type thing. It's all or nothing. And according to the extreme of this group, there's no difference between Abu Bakr and you and I. We're the same. Right? Meaning, in front of Allah, in terms of level and strength of Iman, there's no difference between Abu Bakr and you. Why? Because Abu Bakr believed in La ilaha illallah and you believe in La ilaha illallah. That's it. Right? But to them, actions mean nothing in the realm of Iman. So Bukhari is addressing this and he's refuting it. He's saying, no, that's not true. Part of Iman are the pillars of Islam, which are Shahadati an La ilaha illallah, the testimony of La ilaha illallah, wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, right? Wa iqam as-salah, establishing prayer, wa ita' az-zakah, giving zakah, wa sawmi Ramadan, and fasting Ramadan, and performing Hajj. These are part of Iman in a sense that somebody who does not do these things, the question of whether they truly believe becomes a valid question, right? So when you look at the companions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about their sidq. They are truthful people, meaning truthful in their claim that they believe. Why? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right? للفقراء المهاجرين الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم وأموالهم يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانها وينصرون الله ورسوله. The muhajirin who, because of their belief, had to endure poverty, meaning it put them at an economic disadvantage. And they had to do hijrah, meaning they had to sacrifice their livelihood, their well-being, their families, etc., for the purpose of Iman. And they acted upon Iman, and that came back to them in a harmful way. And they do whatever they can to assist the cause. This is their actions. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comment about the companions? He says, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. Those are the truthful people. Their actions truly indicate that they believe what they claim to believe. But if somebody comes about, and I've given you this analogy before, and says, I love you so much, I love you so much, I love you so much, But you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, don't say that, you can't. It's just controlling the individual. Is that real love? There might be love there, but it's not of the other person. It's love of the self, right? So their actions indicate what they truly believe. And there's only so much you can do to suppress your actions, your real intent. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the hypocrites, وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَأَرَيْنَاكَهُمْ فَلَعَرَفْتَهُمْ بِسِيمَاهُمْ وَلَتَعْرِفَنَّهُمْ فِي لَحْنِ الْقَوْلِ. Allah says about the hypocrites, He's telling the Prophet ﷺ, if I wanted to, I would show you them. Like I would put a mark on their faces so you know exactly who the hypocrites are, but you will know them in the way they talk, their language. I'm reading a book now about human nature. Right? I'm loving it. And one of the things he repeatedly says is, forget about what people say. Forget about the words. Rather, not just look at the actions, look at their facial expressions when they say what they say. Because he says there are so many muscles in the face that you cannot consciously control them all. So even if somebody's giving a fake smile, other muscles in the face will truly express what the person really believes. Right? Of course, actions play a role. Actions play a role. He says, watch the patterns of people. Watch the patterns. And it's always about the exaggerations. Somebody is always late and says, oh, I had this issue, oh, I had this problem, I had that problem. We understand once, twice things happen. We get it. But it just repeated all the time. We're all living life like you. Why isn't anybody else facing the same amount of challenges you are? There's something off here. You see what I mean here? Their actions contradict what they're saying. So, Islam is built on these 5 actions. And if Islam is built on it, it begs the question, somebody who does not do these things, are they really believers? Now, don't become a takfiri. Don't become somebody who goes around and calling people kafir, right? That's not the point here. The idea is, if somebody truly believed in the cause, they would commit to it. But somebody who does not believe the cause will not commit to it. So the point here isn't to say somebody who doesn't pray and gives zakat, there's no way they're a Muslim. No. But it really begs the question, to what extent do they believe in it? And this is why Muslims who are born into Muslim families and no longer identify as Muslims are much more likely to come from families that never even talk about Islam. It's just not part of their life. So by the time it reaches their kids, they're like, okay, well, why should I identify as a Muslim when clearly it plays no role in our lives and all it does is create disadvantages for me in society? Why? Right? No actions of mine relate to Iman. So why believe? Why identify with Iman? And there's also another side to this. When people proclaim and profess Iman, yet their actions show something completely different. And now people are watching and looking. Okay, wait a minute, hold on. They talk about fearing Allah. They talk about the afterlife. They talk about accountability. Yet all of their actions, or a lot of their actions, completely contradict what they profess to believe. Okay, well, what's the deal here? Oh, this religion stuff is nonsense. We've all heard this, haven't we? We've all heard this. So Bukhari is pointing this out and saying, your Iman is built on these 5 actions. The stronger your relationship is to these 5 things, the more they play a central role in your life, the stronger the pillars are, thus the stronger the structure is, your Iman. But the weaker they are, the weaker your Iman is. And if one pillar is missing, then the entire structure is vulnerable. The entire structure is vulnerable. And if one pillar is weak, it's still there, it's there, but it's weak, it's feeble, then the entire structure is in, there's a concern there, right? So بني الإسلام على خمس. Bab Umur al-Iman, the chapter on the affairs of Iman. The Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Imanu bid'un wa sittuna shu'bah, wal haya'u shu'batun min al-Iman. Iman is 60 some branches. Okay, what's Bukhari teaching us here? What he's teaching us is Iman isn't simply the big things. Even small things can be considered part of Iman, right? Like, for example, your facial gestures when you talk to somebody. When Abdullah ibn Ummi Maktoum, the blind man, came to the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, while the Prophet was talking to one of the elites, right? Ibn Maktoum, he's blind. He doesn't see the Prophet talking to somebody else, right? So he's coming saying, Ya Rasulullah, I have a question, Ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet knows that this elite will not take it upon himself to be in the same presence as somebody who is a lower class individual. That's his arrogance. So the Prophet is in a predicament. What do I do now? He doesn't know what to do. It's the spur of the moment. And in that, when he looked at Ibn Maktoum, abasa. What is abasa? When the wrinkles of your forehead appear out of concern, stress, right? And Allah comes and says to the Prophet, abasa wa tawalla. Somebody frowned and turned away. He didn't even say, Ya Rasulullah, you frowned and you turned away. Why? Because Allah is telling the Prophet, that's not your akhlaq. That's not your akhlaq, right? So even something like that is part of Iman. How you greet, your smile is part of Iman. So here it's telling us that Iman isn't simply the major things. Everything counts when it comes to Islam. Islam is a holistic religion. Your business ethics, your motherhood, your fatherhood, as a spouse, as a neighbor, who you deal with non-Muslims, young, old, rich, poor, all of that branches from Iman. And the stronger the source is, then the more that will reflect in even the very small branches of Iman. Right? And then the Prophet says, Wal haya, ethical modesty, remember the station of haya? Spoke about it. Ethical modesty, shu'batun min al-iman. Haya, ethical modesty, is a branch of Iman. Now, ethical modesty manifests through behaviors. How you act, how you conduct yourself, right? But the root of haya is in the heart. It's where it's rooted. It's haya. If hayat is biological life, your body being alive, then haya is your heart being alive. So initially, haya is not a physical manifestation. It's not a behavior. It's a state of self. So even the actions of the heart fall under Iman. So Iman doesn't only manifest through actions of the body. Iman manifests through actions of the heart, such as tawakkul, such as sabr, patience, such as rida, being pleased with Allah, such as contentment. Right? All these are actions of the heart, and they are part of Iman. So here Bukhari is giving us another bit of information about Iman, and that is, Iman is more than just in the physical, it's also in the emotional or the psychological or the spiritual. Babun al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. Chapter, a Muslim is somebody who other Muslims are safe from his or her tongue and hand. Right? عن عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله تعالى عنهما عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قال المسلم من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده والمهاجر من هجر ما نهى الله عنه. So here a Muslim is somebody who other Muslims are safe from their tongue and their hand. And a muhajir, an immigrant, is somebody who leaves what Allah has prohibited. Okay? So what's the new piece of information about Iman Bukhari is teaching us about? Well, what is the theme here? A true Muslim is somebody who does not use their tongue and their hands to harm other people. And a muhajir, right, an immigrant, which is a spiritual state, here it's not physical immigration. It's not immigrating with your body. It's not leaving one physical space to another physical space. Here, it's the spiritual hijrah. Remember, tariq al-hijratain, the two immigrations? We're not talking about leaving your land and going somewhere else. We're talking about how does my heart reach Allah and how do I apply the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is a spiritual immigration. So the immigrant is somebody man hajara. Hajara is to leave something. Hence hijrah is leaving your home for some other home. Leaving your space for another space. Right? So here it means somebody who does hijrah is the one who leaves what Allah has prohibited. So what's the new piece of information about Iman here? Well, the first part of the hadith is, I am not harming other people. The second part of the hadith, I am not doing sins. So here Bukhari is teaching us that part of Iman is leaving certain things, not doing certain things. The previous hadith is about doing things. What are you doing? Actions are a manifestation of belief, and actions impact belief. Here, he's saying sometimes not doing something, refraining from doing something is part of Iman, is your Iman. So when I don't do a sin, that's part of Iman. As the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, that al-fitan yu'radu ala al-qulub, tests will come to your hearts. Whoever fails the test, right, what happens? A dark spot is put on their heart. But whoever stays away from it, whoever refrains from falling into the test, into the disobedience, then a light spot is put on their hearts. So a lot or part of Iman is refraining from doing things. Now that which is haram is clear, but there's also another element that we in modern societies, due to people not having a authoritative source to go back to, right? An authoritative source to go back to. Why is it that fashions and values and ideals and lifestyles today in the West change so quickly? If you look at your own lives, right? When you were children, till your adulthood, till your children became adults, how many times did society's values change? Now compare that to the past 20 years. How much has it changed? Way more. And the question is, why? Because there's no authoritative force. These young ones, they don't have a religion to go back to. They don't have proper role models to go back to. It's always these new artists that come, right? Every decade there's new artists. That's just the reality of the music industry, the movie industry is always new figures coming. So there's no set value system. They don't look to their parents as role models. In fact, a lot of them resent their parents. They think that the problems of their lives are because of their parents. That's partially true, and that's partially an exaggeration, right? So what happens is they're constantly changing because there's no central force. How did I get to this point? I just lost my chain of thought.
Talking about values changing because it's wrong.
Right, that's what I was talking about. But what led to that? SubhanAllah. Right, so, oh yes, I remember now. So you have this constant changing, and these changes tend to come in the extreme form. Right? It's just one extreme to the other extreme to another extreme. This is how it is in the West. It's very unhealthy. And the reason for that is because there's no central force. There's no authority in this regard. So what does that have anything to do with what we're talking about, what I'm trying to say? And that is part of Iman is realizing that overindulging in what is permissible is harmful to the soul. Overindulging in what is permissible is harmful to the soul, right? I mean, even the body is the same thing. Coffee, is there any like clear data or research that clearly indicates that coffee is harmful for consumption? Like you look at smoking. They knew smoking, apparently, by the way, I was just listening to this lecture, history lecture, that smoking was known to be harmful centuries ago. A long time ago it was known, right? Coffee, there's no such data. But we all know, if you keep drinking coffee, and you keep drinking coffee, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? If eating carrots too much will start to affect your skin color, apparently. You start looking orange. Apparently, is what I've heard. I don't know how true that is. Right? So, al-israf, it overindulges in anything can become harmful, even in religiosity. How? Didn't the Prophet ﷺ tell Abdullah bin Amr, relax, man. Fast some days and eat some days. Sleep some nights and wake up and do salah some nights. Read the Quran in no more than 3 days. Enough. And Abdullah said, I could do more. You can't do more. It becomes harmful when you do more. Why? Because you begin to neglect other responsibilities. Right? So, a good part of Iman and healthy Iman is about remaining moderate. Moderation in everything, right? That's why we call it Ummah al-Wasat, the moderate nation. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We made you a moderate nation, right? And moderation in everything is always better. And either extreme is harmful for us. So the point here is, part of Iman is refraining from things. And sometimes as your Iman grows, it's a realization that I need to refrain from even some of the permissible things. What do I mean? The overindulgence in that which is permissible. So the companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum would avoid the mubah, would avoid the permissible, not because it's haram, not out of some rigid understanding of the religion like so many people have today, but out of concern that it will open doors to other unhealthy lifestyles or unhealthy behaviors. Okay. Babu ayyul Islami afdal. A chapter on what part of Islam is best. عن أبي موسى رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله قال يا رسول الله أي الإسلام أفضل. Abu Musa رضي الله تعالى عنه asked the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام what Islam is best, meaning what's the best application of Islam? Or we can understand it as what are the most important behaviors or actions in Islam? Now, we all know this is a pretty basic question. What are the most important actions in Islam? Of course, Iman, followed by what? We said Iman, Salah, followed by what? Zakah, followed by what? Fasting, followed by what? Hajj. Pretty basic. Yet here you have a companion asking, Ya Rasulullah, what are the most important actions of Iman? Now, this is a companion, Abu Musa, radiallahu ta'ala an. He's not some guy off the block, right? He's not somebody who's new to the faith. He knows that these actions that we just mentioned are the best. So what is he really asking? Ya Rasulullah, after the obligations, what do I focus on? Okay, I'm doing my salah, I'm giving my zakah, I'm fasting my Ramadan, I plan on doing hajj. What about after that? What do I focus on? So the Prophet ﷺ says, قال من سلم قال تطعم الطعام No, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. So يا رسول الله قال من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده. Right? He tells Abu Musa what we were just talking about. The best Islam, the best actions, is to spare other Muslims from the evils of your tongue and your hands. Right? So here, what is the additional piece of information Bukhari is telling us? Right? Now, in the mind of a ambitious person, it's always about actions. I want to be doing more. You know, we talk about Gaza and Palestine. I got these young ones coming to me and saying, I want to do more. I want to do more. What can I do more? I'm going to go over there. Let's go leave and let's go somewhere else. Right? Why? Because in their mind, I need to be doing something in order for me to be valuable. Here you have Abu Musa asking the Prophet, what is the best Islam? He didn't give him an action. Rather, he gave him something to refrain from. To show us what? That sometimes refraining from doing things is the best way of promoting Islam. Think about it. Think about it. When you're in the grocery store with your hijab on, or with my beard, clearly I'm a brown person with a beard. I wonder what I am, right? People will just assume I'm what? I'm a Muslim. If they see Sikhs walking around, because they're brown and they have beards, facial hair, they assume they're what? Muslims, right? If I'm in the grocery store and I cut in line, how much damage do I do to the reputation of Islam? Just by that. A lot, right? But if I'm waiting in the line, then I'm at least preventing other people from having a negative opinion of Islam. Is that something small? No, even though I'm not doing anything. I'm refraining from doing something, yet it's meaningful. It is important, right? So here Al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, perhaps he's teaching us that don't underestimate the importance of not doing something. Refraining from the haram, refraining from overindulgence. It is important. Here he's telling Abu Musa, the best way you can apply Islam after the obligations is what? Spare other people your harms. Now, there's another point here. This question was asked by many companions on different occasions. And you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ answers each time in a different way. Why? Because he's answering the one who's asking him. This does not mean every single one of us, right, of us today, the best way we can apply Islam is by doing this. Rather, perhaps the Prophet ﷺ, understanding the personality of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, understood that Abu Musa had this tendency that if he's upset or frustrated or he's engaging with people, he can be harsh and aggressive. So he's telling him, Abu Musa, tone it down. That's the best way you can apply Islam. And again, as the example goes, when Yaqeen Institute did their research about why American Muslims leave Islam, right? Why American Muslims leave Islam. Do you know what the number one reason was? It wasn't because of atheism. It wasn't because of propaganda. It wasn't because of ideologies. It wasn't because of certain questions. The number one reason was the behaviors of other Muslims. Right? So this is serious stuff. So don't underestimate the reward and the importance of not doing certain things and how that is part of the preservation of Iman. Bab إطعام الطعام من الإسلام. A chapter on feeding food, feeding others is part of Islam. عن عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن رجلا سأل النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام أي الإسلام خير. Again, you have another individual asking the Prophet, what is the best way to apply Islam? The Prophet gives him the following. قال تطعم الطعام وتقرأ السلام على من عرفت ومن لم تعرف. He said to feed food, meaning to be hospitable to others, to your guests, to invite people to eat with you, and number two, to give salam to the person you know and the person you don't know. So here you have a completely different answer to the same exact question. Well, again, it has to do with the person asking. Perhaps this man was wealthy, well-to-do. Perhaps he himself had a passion, he enjoyed hospitality. There's some people like that, right? They're very social. So the Prophet ﷺ understands his strength and is reinforcing his iman through what he already likes to do. That's a strategy. Or perhaps it's exactly the opposite. This man he doesn't like guests. There are some people like that. I don't like to deal with that. I don't like to all the work that goes into it. So here the Prophet ﷺ is correcting his mindset by saying that, no, this is part of iman. You should do that. It is important to your iman. Also to give salam to whom you know and whom you don't know. Maybe he's the type of person who only socially engaged with people he knew. That's it. He was an introvert. He doesn't like to talk to people he doesn't know. So perhaps this individual was an introvert, and that was restricting his iman. So the Prophet ﷺ was encouraging him to do the things that would give him more opportunity for iman. Right? Also, it's teaching us that socializing, being socially involved, is a key component of Islam. It's a key component of Islam. And we Muslims, we always, in the West, we Muslims in the West constantly want to isolate ourselves. You have these masajid being built throughout the country that are stunning, absolutely stunning. And everything is there. From all the religious things to cafes to basketball courts to right? And to my mind, I'm watching, there was one masjid, a new one, they gave us a tour of the entire masjid. Everything from basketball court, everything is there. Literally, all you have to do is go to the masjid. You can spend all your days there and find everything you need. All they need is like a market, and then you'll just have everything, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, and this popped in my mind. We want to create a utopia for ourselves, where we don't have to deal with the outside world. That's not going to work. Why? Because that's not our role. Our role isn't to sit back and let the world burn. Our role is to be an active group in society, because we can bring positive change, good for people. There are people suffering psychologically, emotionally, in their families, in their relationships, in many ways. We have the solutions. And the Prophet was sent to mankind, to a group of people to isolate themselves. Right? So we are meant to engage with people. We are meant to invite people. We are meant to talk to people. People we know, people we don't know. Right? Now for some people it comes more easily. They're extroverts. And for other people they're introverts. It's fine. We don't all have to be doing this. But the idea is the mindset. Making masajid with the intent of simply closing ourselves off from the outside community is not going to work. Allah will bring the problems to us. Right? Just like 9/11. Just like 9/11. Allah will bring the problems to us, to force us to play the role we're meant to play. So, تُطْعِمُ الطَّعَامِ. So hospitality is part of iman. The way you interact with your guests is part of iman. Now back in the day, there wasn't much food. So it was really amazing when you shared your food with somebody else. In our times, we don't really have a problem of not enough food. Walhamdulillah. Our problem is making too much food. So our problem today is having too much food. So where does hospitality come in our time? Hospitality comes in our time in making other people feel welcome. That welcoming feeling. Because we're desperately missing it in our lives. That social connection. We're desperately missing this in our lives. So when you invite people, by all means, impress them with what you cook. Right? I'm not saying just cook very small things and right? No, what I'm saying is don't overcook to where you throw 3/4 of the food away, but understand that the point here is hospitality. Your words, having a conversation with your guests, making them feel welcome, is the application of تُطْعِمُ الطَّعَامِ in our times today, because that's what people need. وَتَقْرَأُ السَّلَامِ, and to give salam to who you know and who you don't know. Some communities, without naming specifics, Some communities here in our diverse SoCal community are really good at that. They're not going to give salam to people of their own ethnicity or their own country. While others, not naming who they are very bad at it and very intentional. I'll only give salam to people who are of my background. As for these other people, no, right?
I said salam to somebody that I don't know in a masjid, and she said, "Do you know me?" I was like, "What?"
Right? Well, at least she responded, right?
She said, "Do you know me?" And she just looked like, "Why are you saying salam to me if you don't know me?" I said, "Okay."
Yeah. So to conclude, hospitality or socializing is part of Iman, and giving Salaam Alaikum, which is also a form of socializing, is also part of Iman. In other words, how we conduct ourselves with other human beings is a question of Iman. Wallahu ta'ala alam. We'll stop at hadith number 13. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.